Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Kenneth Thomas, and on Mondays, I like to talk about different topics that have to do with mental health. And today, what I want to talk about, is toxic relationships. I know a lot of us are familiar that there was recently a celebrity trial involving two very well-known celebrities. And the more I learned about this relationship, and I know which side I came down on. Okay. I'm not here to discuss that. What I'm here to discuss is the fact that just looking at the kind of stuff that was going on in this relationship, it really was a toxic relationship. It was not a healthy situation for either one of them. For a lot of reasons. And it made me think that, there's a lot of people that are involved in those kind of relationships and they may not even know it. Okay. So that's what I want to talk about today. Now, the first thing I want to mention though, is that if you are watching this on Facebook, as a live stream and you want to comment and participate, you need to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give Facebook permission to show your picture and your name so that way you can participate. Okay. If you're catching this on replay, you don't need to do that, but thank you for catching this on the replay. All right. So let's get into this. Now, what is a toxic relationship really? All relationships have ups and downs. Okay, folks. I mean, that's just the normal thing. All right. Some signs that your relationship is toxic though. When you feel that you have to hide what you really need from your partner in your relationship, that's not a healthy thing. Okay. When you give 100% and you get very little in return. All right. When you have doubts in your mind and you're wondering if you're hated by the person you're in a relationship with, that's a big one. That's a big sign that you might be in a toxic relationship. When they show very little concern about your time, your experiences, or your emotions, that's not healthy either. When you're left feeling insignificant, emotionally drained, and you feel that you just can't be yourself, that you have to be somebody else for them, that's a sign of a toxic relationship. When you have to choose your words carefully because you're so worried that you're going to offend them, that's another big sign. Here's one that really kind of resonates with me with some of the stuff that I've seen. When you aren't allowed to have personal boundaries. They are, but you're not. That is definitely a sign of a toxic relationship. And if you feel that you're being constantly judged, and that you're really never measuring up, that's another sign. It comes down to a lack of trust and communication in a lot of ways. Okay, that lack of trust and communication will contribute to a toxic relationship. It's not necessarily the only sign of it. But if you find yourself in any kind of interpersonal relationship, now this doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. This can be a work relationship. This can be a friendship. It can be any kind of relationship between you and another person. If it's draining and depressing, if it's all about the other person, if they're not supportive, if there's constant negative energy in that relationship, if it's all take and no give on their part, if there's excessive jealousy and that kind of thing, and continuous disrespect, this is really something that you need to be mindful of, and you need to, if at all possible, you need to get away from it, because it's just going to bring out the worst in you. It's going to make you miserable. It is going to cause so many different mental health issues that it's one of those, you're getting very little, if anything, out of the relationship compared to what you're putting into it. And it is going to just drain you. It is going to take you into the depths of despair. It is going to, if you're somebody who's already dealing with mental health issues, this could be the nail in the coffin. Okay. And there are people that hadn't really had mental health issues that find themselves in toxic relationships that end up giving them mental health issues to deal with. And sometimes if it's a physically abusive relationship, that could end up being a post-traumatic stress type situation. If they're constantly told that they're fat or their body issues, that can lead to body dysmorphia, that can lead to unhealthy eating habits, that could carry on for a long time. And this is one of the things that kind of concerns me with being a father of daughters, is that I know how cruel kids can be in school, and being critiqued for being too skinny, too tall, too fat, you don't have this attribute or you have that attribute, can lead to, when they're hearing that constantly, it can lead to mental health issues that will follow them for their whole life. So there's a lot of concern that I have with what kind of relationships that my kids will have. Now, my two youngest are 10 and 8, so I'm not really necessarily worried about them being in any kind of serious relationship, although my 8-year-old has told me several times that she has boyfriends, and she gets really upset when they break up, but then they get back together, and then she's upset again because they broke up again. I'm assuming that is normal behavior with daughters that age. But the biggest thing for me is that I want the relationships that my children have to be supportive relationships that help them grow, that help them become who they really want to be. And when I look at all the publicity that was going on with this particular trial, and everybody's laughing about the fact that she pooped in the bed. Whew. I'm sorry. Okay, outside of being sick and having diarrhea and accidentally going in the bed, I mean, that's not what I'm talking about here. She deliberately took a crap in his bed. Yeah, I would have cut sling load right there, man. I've been like, you know what? You may be good looking and everything else, but get the out of here. I can't imagine putting up with that level of disrespect. And I've seen some other people where I've talked to them and they have these dreams and they have these things that they want to do in their life, and they get excited about things. And then the next time I talk to them, they're like, well, yeah, no, I'm not going to really be chasing that dream, or I'm not going to be trying to do that anymore. And, it's like, well, you really wanted to go to school for this. You really wanted to learn to do this job. What happened? Well, my spouse said, or my boyfriend said, or my fiance said, and their dreams are gone. They were killed before they even had a chance to sprout and grow. And that's heartbreaking for me, because I've seen it happen so many times. Now, there are degrees of toxic relationships, okay? And just because a relationship has something in it that is toxic in nature doesn't necessarily mean that the entire relationship is toxic. It might be one of those things where somebody who is a very passive person might need to figure out how to communicate what they need and what they want out of a relationship. And if you're the person who's feeling that you're not being heard, part of it is on you to work to make yourself heard, okay? And that can be very hard. That can be very painful. And it's going to be something that is going to make you fearful, because you know what? I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, this is what I need. And you're going to be worried about rejection from the person that is most likely to be able to be inside your guard. Okay. And that is terrifying. Okay. My wife and I have been together now for 13 years. And I know that I can trust her. But there are still times when I feel fear of rejection when I want to try to communicate something I feel I need. And that's a natural fear that's in there. Okay. But I also know and I trust her enough that I can communicate this with her. It may not be easy, and it may be something that causes a little bit of fear, but I have enough trust in our relationship, in her, to try to communicate these things. Now, sometimes it can be a bumpy road in the communication because what I'm saying, what she's hearing may not match up. Okay. But that's another thing. That's a whole nother story. That's the life. That's life with communication. There's what you are saying and the idea that you're sending with what you are saying and what they are hearing and what idea the words they're hearing is putting in their mind. Okay. So sometimes you've got to go back and forth with, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is, and reiterate what you heard. So that way you can make sure that what you're saying is what the other person is, and what you mean by what you're saying is what the other person is hearing and understanding. So there can be challenges in that. But the biggest thing, is that if you find yourself with somebody who is jealous of any and every other thing other than your devotion to them, if they're bringing out the worst in you, which is obviously what was going on with these two celebrities, they were bringing out the worst in each other. And you know what? I bet they had some awesome times. And I bet there were times when they were on top of the world and everybody looked at them and was like, oh, I'm so jealous. But the reality of it is that behind closed doors, they were bringing out the worst in each other. I mean, it's just obvious. But if you find yourself where you're not being, finding that supportiveness, if your professional relationships are doing this to you, if your friendships are doing this to you, it is going to be draining. And my friend Anna, she'd say that compassion is so important. And that is absolutely true. If you approach your relationships from a point of compassion and empathy, they're going to be so much healthier. So long as the other party is also trying, both of you trying to approach the relationship from a point of view of compassion and empathy. Okay. So it isn't always the easiest thing to do. It isn't always the healthiest thing in the world, some of the relationships we find ourselves in. But when you realize that you're in a relationship that is sucking more out of you than it's giving to you, if it is draining you, and if it's causing depression, if it's bringing out the worst in you, it isn't worth it for your mental health, for your future, for the kind of life that you deserve. It's just not worth it. Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. And I'm going to once again remind everybody, if you are struggling with the thoughts of suicide and depression and things that are just becoming that negative for you, that you feel like the only solution left is to take your own life, I want to emphasize to you that there are people who will be devastated by your loss. There will be people that will be forever changed and not for the better if you're gone. So if you find yourself in that kind of a situation, reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K, which is 8255 if you don't want to have to read those little bitty letters on your phone. All right. 1-800-273-8255. And if I'm not mistaken, beginning sometime in the middle of next month, we're going to have a national 3-digit number that will be linking you to the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Just like 911 gets you to emergency services anywhere in the United States, we're going to be having in the United States a 3-digit number that will get you to that mental health and suicide prevention assistance. So until next time, folks, peace, love, and photography. And remember, everything can make a beautiful image, including you. Have a great afternoon, and I will